It's good to be back. We are quite extremely late, to say the least, for today's broadcast, but because of the news that is making the rounds, I figured we should get here and say a word or two before the night winds down. I mean, there's been plenty that's happened over the last couple of minutes in as far as our transfers are concerned, in as far as speculation goes. There have been some developments that we did not get the chance to hear about in our earlier broadcast, for which some of you joined us. The likes of Safa Ali were with us during the course of that broadcast, Mr. Leo, Mario Momoto, and all the others that managed to tune in earlier on for our earlier broadcast. So while that was done, I think it was sort of prudent for us to come back on here and sort of try and let you know what's the latest in regards to some of the reports that we had spoken about in our earlier broadcast. There's been progress on news on the Florian Wirtz deal. Of course, we did confirm to you the Matthias Cunha deal, and then we did let you know about Milos Kakes that Liverpool are advancing. Now there's some new developments on Florian Wirtz deal, as well as Bruno Fernandes, because I mean he is considering a move to a move away from Manchester United. So we do have some news on that as well. So we're going to be getting into that conversation and more. Then, anyways, as I wait for you guys to join the broadcast, those are some of the things we're going to be discussing about in tonight's broadcast. Then, of course, we did also talk about the FIFA Club World Cup. That one kicks off late midway this month. So we're going to be maybe talking a little bit about that as well, because there's some exciting news. We did speak about the goalkeeping situation at Brentford. So, guys, welcome back to the Football Tribe League channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect on the side, coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. It's good to have you all on the broadcast. Do me the absolute honor and favor. Kindly like the broadcast, but also please consider subscribing to the channel, since many of you are new here on the channel. But also do let me know where you're joining us from. What country are you joining us from? Let's have a chat. Let's engage. I do not want this to be a one-way ended conversation. And then, of course, there's some developments on Tottenham manager Ange Postecoglou. So we're going to be discussing more over that. So we're going to have an update on that as well. But please, like the broadcasts and also consider subscribing to the channel for majority of you that are new here. Yeah, so those are the topics we're going to be discussing, and you could, if it's not too much to ask, you can let me know where you want us to begin the conversation from. Do let me know where you want us to start the conversation from, and we will get it started in a bit. So we're going to be speaking about Bruno Fernandes, Florian Wirtz. There's a twist in the tail of that transfer that continues to rage on. Liverpool are at the top of it, but there's some new demands that are being made, as well as Ange Postecoglou's future at Tottenham Hotspur. So we're going to be talking about that and a little more. Anyways, we'll start the conversation right away. I think from should we start it from the Liverpool side or from Ange Postecoglou's side? Anyway, let's begin the conversation at Tottenham Hotspur, where it is being revealed, according to multiple sources, that Ange Postecoglou could be sacked next week and then be replaced. Tottenham are already lining up potential replacements, and they are looking at Marco Silva of Fulham. They are really considering the Portuguese gaffer as a potential replacement for Ange Postecoglou, but also the Brentford manager there, Thomas Frank, is among the other candidates that are in contention for the job. So Ange Postecoglou is one to be watched. It was revealed earlier on this week that Spurs were considering really, to his future at the club, and we wait to see. And this news was sort of revealed just a couple of minutes back by none other than Fabrizio Romano, who says Spurs chairman Daniel Levy is set to decide Ange Postecoglou's future in the next days. The situation is open. Thomas Frank and Marco Silva are both appreciated and discussed internally as options for Spurs a job if Ange gets fired. No final decision on Postecoglou yet, but a decision is going to be made in the coming days. Again, we spoke about, I think we echoed about this earlier in our earlier broadcast, saying that Tottenham need to make a decision as soon as yesterday. They need to give their fans clarity, they need to give the players clarity while they enjoy their summer break, and they also need to give the manager the clarity that he needs in preparation for next season. You do not want to be there enjoying the summer while you draw plans for the following season in terms of what players you want to target to sort of improve your squad, what players you intend to recruit to sort of improve on last season's performance, because we also the 22 defeats are quite unacceptable by their own standards in Tottenham Hotspurs. I mean, we are talking about a team that in 2019 were playing in the finals of the UEFA Champions League, that in 2016, 2015 were sort of fighting for a Premier League title, and the season subsequent to that, of course, until the sacking of eventually the sacking of Mauricio Pochettino, that the club sort of took its twists and turns in there. Jose Mourinho coming in, Antonio Conte coming in. Of course, that fairy tale never ended well for both managers, as they were all sacked eventually. So, and that kind of thing. So we've known, whereas we've always sung that the Spurs way, that because they were not winning major titles, I mean, they've at least advanced on that. This season, he delivered them a title, and I think that's the conundrum in which Tottenham Hotspurs do find themselves. We're talking about a manager that has won for them a major title for the first time since 2008, when they won the Carabao Cup or the EFL Cup, or Carling Cup, I think, as it was called at the time. He guided them to the triumph of that by beating a Manchester United team, and about their own performance domestically. Manchester United is one of the gigantic teams across the world of football, so you cannot take nothing away from that. So him beating Man United in the final is also something quite commendable to help Tottenham Hotspurs win a major title, and then also qualify them for the UEFA Champions League, which again means sort of a larger conversation in regards to how they go about next season when it comes to player recruitment, because you're not just recruiting to sort of compete in the Premier League, as well as try and earn a UEFA Champions League spot next season, and then try to fight for a domestic cup in the FA Cup or the League Cup and that kind of thing. I mean, for starters, you have a date with PSG to play in the UEFA Super Cup there. So I mean, there's that piece of silverware to fight for in the first place. We're talking about a PSG side that yesterday humiliated Inter Milan in a 5-0 thumping to win the UEFA Champions League title, to set up a date with Tottenham Hotspurs for the UEFA Super Cup. I think that game will be played either around August. We should be expecting that game to be played. So it's quite impressive that Tottenham find themselves in this kind of situation. But while it is impressive, they need that clarity really to know where the direction they're going to be taking and what that means for them. Actually, that game will be played on Wednesday, 13th August 2025 at 8 p.m. I think that will be, I think it will be about 10 p.m. East African time. So really that says a whole lot in terms of Tottenham's next season, because you need to recruit for Champions League football, not just players that are going to get you over the line. You need to assess your squad. which players are not good enough. Atletico Madrid are already circling around Tottenham Hotspurs to see if they can sign Cristiano Ronaldo, because they do appreciate him as a very, very brilliant defender. So because there's that, you do not want to be losing some of your key players. We all know that Cristiano Romero and Mickey Van de Ven have been quite mainstays for as long as they've been fit in that centre-back pairing for Tottenham Hotspurs. Destin Udogie has been quite a diligent servant, as well as Dejan Spence. And then Pedro Porro at left back has been quite a good servant. And the goalkeeping situation, you get an improvement on Vicario or you stick with Vicario? There's something to discuss on that. They did sign a centre back in Jackson, and again, of course, he's suffered his fair share of injuries, but it makes you question. You recruit another centre back, and Tottenham are in the market. They are interested in signing Crystal Palace captain in Mark Gay. Yes, is it Mark Gay? Yes, that's the Crystal Palace captain and England international, because they are interested in recruiting a centre back. You look at their midfield. Yes, they do have Rodrigo Bentancur, they do have Yves Bissouma, Pape Matza, and those kinds of players. But then you need to make an addition in that sort of central midfield role. I think they would need an extra body in there. You have Dejan Kulusevski, James Maddison in terms of players that carry forward, Brennan Johnson, Houston Ming, you have Dominic Solanke, you do have Wilson Odebat in that setup. But I mean, you could use more firepower, because we know while Richarlison has made his fair share of contribution, he's not delivered to the expectation worthy of the close to 60 million pounds that they paid to pull him out of Everton and that kind of thing. So it's quite important that Tottenham make a decision really quickly. But according to the latest reports that we are getting, that are seeping through at the moment, is that they are considering sacking Ange Postecoglou, and in fact, some sources will tell you that they have already made the decision to sack Ange Postecoglou, even though a very, very reliable source in Fabrizio Romano says that they are yet to make a decision on his future. Some sources do indicate that that decision has already been made to get rid of him, and they are looking at Thomas Frank at Brentford, who has been quite immaculate since Brentford and the promotion to the Premier League. I think that was for the 2022-2023 Premier League season starting then. So around that, you remember that opening match against Arsenal when they beat up against Arsenal by 2-0 at the GTEC Stadium. So really quite impressive to hear. And then you do have Marco Silva at Fulham. He just turned down an offer from Al Hilal of Saudi Arabia in attempts to sign him, because Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia do want to replace George Jesus. And although their primary target is always been Simone Inzaghi, they did speak to other managers like Marco Silva. They did speak to the Bournemouth manager, that's Andoni Iraola, to see if they can strike a deal. Both of those two did turn down those attempts. So again, it's quite crucial that Tottenham do get ahead of this situation and decide who they want to have as their manager going into next season. So it's really paramount or quite important that they do make a decision as soon as yesterday. Then moving on from the conversation around Tottenham Hotspurs, then yes, I promised you an update on Florian Wirtz. Now, a lot of news is making rounds that there have been new demands in regards to the Florian Wirtz situation in those negotiations between Bayer Leverkusen and Liverpool. We know talks have not broken down. The two clubs have a very good relationship. They've really traded well together. They've already agreed on a deal for the transfer of Jeremy Frimpong, who has since officially joined Liverpool. But now they are entangled in negotiations for the 22-year-old German sensational in Florian Wirtz. Now, I think Bayer Leverkusen realized that the players given his green light to Liverpool. That's one. Two, Man City pulled out of the race. That's the other. He has informed Bayern Munich that he won't be joining them. He's chosen Liverpool. And sort of while that gives Liverpool the upper hand in negotiation terms, they also, because remember, Bayer Leverkusen are not desperate to sell the player. Under ideal circumstances, they would rather retain the player for an extra season. And that kind of arrangement. But if the decision is to sell him, they really, really want to get a very good offer for him. And on that, they are demanding a fee in the region of 150 million euros. Now, 150 million euros, excuse me, will be quite a record transfer fee for Liverpool and for English football as a whole, in as far as the Premier League is concerned. Of course, this kind of news is exciting that that Premier League clubs are able to go out there and try and poach or nick the best of talents that there is. Of course, that they are now competing with Real Madrid and Barcelona, because seasons gone by, Real Madrid have always been sort of picking, been cherry picking, as well as Barcelona, in as far as the biggest talents are concerned across Europe, even in the Premier League this itself. You remember Filippo Coutinho leaving Liverpool to go to Barcelona. You remember Ousmane Dembele leaving Dortmund to go to Barcelona. Jude Bellingham has just left Dortmund to go to Real Madrid just about last season, but one. And then that kind of thing. Kylian Mbappe is just playing Real Madrid. Now, Premier League teams have also been trying to, trying to go out there and poach some of the biggest talents. That's how Man City got to get a hold of Erling Haaland. Liverpool are trying to get Florian Wirtz. Seasons gone by, they went to Benfica and, landed Darwin Núñez, Enzo Fernandes to Chelsea. So, and that kind of whole environment. But in regards to the negotiations between Bayer Leverkusen and Liverpool, according to some sources, they say that the two parties are still far apart in quite on a transfer fee. And I'll read you this from Work Self Extra, who's or they call them their hashtag is their handle is Bayer Offer Extra. They say Bayer Leverkusen and Liverpool are still quite far apart on the transfer fee for Florian Wirtz. The gap is more than 20 million euros. Remember, we did speak about Liverpool's second bid that was in the region of 130 million euros, even though the club value Wirtz at 150 million euros. So they say that valuation of 20 million euros apart is still a sticking point. They're going to say that both Liverpool's first and second bids have been rejected. Bayer Leverkusen still want at least 150 million euros. Then they go on to say that there are two possible solutions. Either the clubs narrow the gap in further rounds of negotiations, or a Liverpool FC player could move to Leverkusen, thereby preventing the transfer fee from rising any further. Then Bayer Leverkusen have one Liverpool player on its list who they would like to sign and whose transfer seems realistic in principle. But it is highly questionable that Harvey Elliott or another English Liverpool player who are in high demand in the Premier League would decide to move to the Bundesliga. Should this happen, however, Bayer Leverkusen could relatively elegantly fill one of the two offensive gaps that would result from the departure of Florian Wirtz. Now, again, he does paint a very good picture in regards to how far the negotiations have gone and what is sort of coming out. I think since Friday we've known about the negotiations. We've known about the second bid from Liverpool, and they were talking payment terms and that kind of thing already, but a final transfer fee is yet to be agreed. Now, according to reports, Bayer Leverkusen are considering asking for a Liverpool player in addition to money for Florian Wirtz. And one of those players is Harvey Elliott. Now, Harvey Elliott has attracted interest from the likes of Nottingham Forest, from the likes of Leeds, who are going to be playing in the Premier League next season. So that sort of leaves him with quite a big decision to make. Where do you play your next football from? Do you go to Germany or do you stay in the UK? I mean, staying at home always feels better, and you could potentially get to make more money while staying at home. But also, you can't rule out the possibility of him going at Germany. Then the other player that has sort of been mentioned in the same body of conversation in regards to a potential swap deal is Jarell Quansah. So that's the player that has been included in these negotiations. And this was revealed by Florian Plettenberg, who works with Sky Germany. He said, Bayer Leverkusen have the idea to include Harvey Elliott or Jarell Quansah in the deal for Florian Wirtz. There's no final decision on this yet, but talks are ongoing. Again, quite similar to the other, expansive narrative to the whole conversation regarding Liverpool's negotiations with Bayer Leverkusen over the transfer of Florian Wirtz. So let's keep our eyes on that deal and see how far down it progresses, whether they can get the job done next week, and we see the progress there. Still staying at Liverpool, we know that Brentford have agreed a deal in the region of £18 million to sign Kaumain Kelleher. That's the 26-year-old Ireland goalkeeper from Liverpool, and that's after they themselves did agree to a fee in the region of 10 million euros for the transfer of goalkeeper Mark Flecken. That's the 31-year-old goalkeeper to join Bayer Leverkusen, to join Erik ten Hag as their #1 goalkeeper. Now, this deal was equally confirmed by none other than your usual suspect in Fabrizio Romano saying Kaumain Kelleher to Brentford, here we go. Deal done for the goalkeeper to join from Liverpool on £18 million package, fee add-ons included. So I think there's possibly a guaranteed fee of about £15 million or 14 plus expected add-ons. And then he goes on to say Mark Flecken will leave Brentford and join by Leverkusen for 10 million euros. So there you have it. That's the confirmation in regards to the transfers of those two goalkeepers. Again, we spoke about them earlier on in the day, just as much as we have been doing during the course of this week. For those of you that are usual suspects are on the Football Tribe UG channel. Anyways, I'm moving away from Liverpool slightly, but before we slide away from Liverpool, do not forget there is that deal between Liverpool and Bournemouth over a potential transfer for Milos Kerkez. Again, that deal negotiations are still ongoing between the club and between the two clubs, but like I said, it seems at the moment that Liverpool are prioritizing negotiations of Florian Wirtz, even though they are equally making progress on the deal for Milos Kerkez. We do understand that Bournemouth want a fee in the region of 40 to 45 million pounds for the transfer of the 21-year-old Hungarian left back. So we'll keep tabs on that as well to see how it does progress. Now, among today's biggest headlines or topics is none other than Bruno Fernandes. Now, okay, we've spoken about Bruno Fernandes extensively. For the usual suspects on the channel, you'll bear witnesses to me that this is a deal that continues to reach on. Now, there is some new important updates in regards to Bruno Fernandes' potential move away from Manchester United to Al Hilal. Now, this is according to Ben Jacobs of Gimme Sport, because the news that we are receiving is that Bruno Fernandes is now gone into that decision-making phase because the club want to wrap this at least they want a final answer by Friday next week for them to determine whether he will be joining them or not, because they want him as a key member, as a part of their squad for the FIFA Club World Cup. Remember that competition does kick off on the 15th of June until the 13th of July. Now, because Al Hilal do have a match against Real Madrid on June the 18th, it is reported that they do want to have some big name players in their ranks by the time they face off with Real Madrid. And high on their list is Bruno Fernandes, as well as the likes of Victor Osimhen in regards to attacking prowesses. And then they also want a left wing back, but that has been mentioned in line with the potential expectation that Simone Inzaghi could join them as their manager at the start of the tournament. Remember, we spoke about Simone Inzaghi with his pending meeting with the Inter bosses that is due next week. So let's keep eyes on that. But back to Bruno Fernandes, yes, we are receiving reports that he's now deliberating with his family to make a decision on the offer that has been on his table for quite a good while now. We know that this week his agent did travel to Saudi Arabia and met with key officials from Al Hilal. Now, according to Ben Jacobs of Gimme Sport, he says Al Hilal now believe an agreement with Bruno Fernandes is close after a week of positive meetings. Keyword, a week of positive meetings. That means there's been an indication at some level, whether to what degree that is yet to be determined. But at least there's been an indication that the player could be open to joining them. So he's saying that Fernandes is currently deliberating with his family. A key factor in whether Fernandes agrees will be if the move is also right for his family. It will be more than just a football decision. Hilal wants a final answer by Friday. That's according to Ben Jacobs. No formal approach or bid yet to Manchester United, but Hilal's belief is a sale will be sanctioned if Bruno Fernandes asks to leave. Manchester United still insist they do not want to sell their captain. I mean, we stress that to all its extents and bounds that Man United have indicated time and again that they are not interested in selling their captain, Bruno Fernandes. The manager in Ruben Amorim has time and again said that the player wants to stay and they really love him. They've really showed him where the project is going, what their plans are for the future, and they would really love him to stay. However, the story linking him with the move to Al Hilal is not going away anytime soon because but the expectation, but the amount of money that he would receive in wages, Man United could also stand to make a huge transfer fee of the sale of their 30-year-old Portuguese international. Now, when it comes to a decision with family, of course, usually when you have a family, it's not as easy as packing your bags and go. You must put in considerations. Where am I moving my family? How change of school if you have school going children. These are sort of things players do consider before making transfers, and some have spoken about them in regards to how they've struggled with that in a bit. And then it is also one of the reasons as to why some players stay in certain cities or at certain clubs. We've spoken about Arsenal's negotiations with Thomas Partey over a new contract because his current contract does end at June 30th, which is this month. Now, according to the reports there is that he loves London and he would prefer to stay in London. So again, you sort of every now and again hear those kinds of conversations. Last summer, when all clubs were clamoring for Nico Williams, we are getting reports that he would prefer to stay in Spain. At the time, Barcelona were equally really interested in signing the 22-year-old winger. Now, that kind of thing. So family is quite a big element. And in this essence, I do think if he is to make the move, there's plenty of players he can call on to that are part of the Portuguese, national team that can give him the necessary insights in regards to how life is there in Saudi Arabia. One of them is Cristiano Ronaldo, who I think made the first biggest move to the Saudi Pro League when he joined Al Nassr. And then the other player, the likes of Ruben Neves, he moved from Wolves to the Saudi Pro League and that kind of thing. And remember, Bruno Fernandes is going to be part of Portugal's team for the UEFA and the UEFA Nations League. That's for the semi-finals. Portugal will be up against Germany. That's next week. That is, or this week, depending on how you start your week, whether it starts on a Monday or a Sunday. But that's on Wednesday, 4th June. Germany will be up against Portugal in the semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League. While on Thursday, the 5th of June, Spain and France will be in action for the semi-finals of the same competition, with the final coming up later on, I think, subsequently on Sunday, the 8th of June. So we will wait to see, as well as the third playoff in that with that respect. But so that's the update on Bruno Fernandes' camp. Let's wait and see if indeed will make a decision to part ways with Manchester United. Because if he does ask to leave the club, then we do not expect the club to stand in his way, even though he's still under a very healthy contract. Remember, at Manchester United, his wages are about 250,000 pounds. That is before taxes. After taxes, you land somewhere around the 150,000 pound mark. And yet, on the other side, Al Hilal are offering him up to 700,000 pounds in weekly wages. Really, you can't compete with that, because that is not even taxed money in as far as the promise is there for the Manchester United captain. It has been again widely reported that money is not quite a motivation for him, but I mean, we can only say so much when it comes to money. We all know that if he makes that move, his future will be as good as sorted. Not that it isn't sorted anyway at the moment, but it just does stand to get better and better. So those are the major stories in regards to transfers, in regards to the managerial situation at Tottenham Hotspurs. Now, the UEFA Champions League team of the season has been revealed, and I mean, it's hard to really sort of disagree with it. It's hard really to disagree with it because they've gone with Gianluigi Donnarumma in goal. They've gone with Marquinhos in that centre back role alongside Inter Milan's Bastoni. They've gone with Nuno Mendes at left back of PSG as well as Achraf Hakimi at the right back. In midfield, they've gone with a double pivot of Vitinha and and Declan Rice, Arsenal's Declan Rice, the only member of the Arsenal team that makes it in the UEFA Champions League team of the season. On the wings or the flanks, they've gone with Rafinha of Barcelona and Lamine Yamal. Okay, it's hard to disagree with this. It's hard to really disagree with this. And then at the front line, they've gone with Ousmane Dembele and Desire Doué, or Desire Doué, if you want to read the name in English, but it is Desire Doué there. So again, I cannot contest that. I really cannot contest that. They couldn't be more spot on. Of course, there are some honorable mentions that are worth really mentioning, like Kivica Kvaratskhelia, like João Neves in that midfield of PSG. It's been quite commendable in terms of their performances as far as this competition is concerned. William Pacho has been equally immaculate in that PSG centre back, and yet only 23 years of age, must I mention. Now, you look at this kind of team, and you look at a 22-year-old Nuno Mendes, a 19-year-old Desire Doué, of course, Vitinha is 25, but Achraf Hakimi, 26, a 17-year-old Lamine Yamal. The future is quite promising. The future is quite promising. And then that makes me reflect once again on that PSG project under Luis Enrique. If that team stays the way it is, and of course they continue to strengthen it, I've read some reports that Liverpool would consider signing Goncalo Ramos from PSG as a striking option. But that notwithstanding, if you do keep that core PSG team as they are, and then of course you add in a centre back who potentially you look at to replace Marquinhos, who is 31 at the moment. When you look at that cohort of that group, the likes of Zaire Emery, I think it's quite impressive. It's quite really impressive. A very young team that really have the future ahead of them, and they could go on to dominate Europe for the next, maybe in the next 5 years, really, because they're still young. They can do it all. They can really do it all. They can go all the way. Indeed, and sort of dominate Europe for the next 4 or 5 years. I would do remember Barcelona when they literally dominated the European scene. That was in 2009, winning it, and then winning it in 2011. We do remember Real Madrid after they won the La Decima in 2014. They only missed 2015 to Barcelona, and then came 2016, 17, 18, and they won it there. After that, they returned in 2022 and 2024 to still win it. Really, so it was quite impressive. So if PSG were to stick with that team and sort of retain the same team, really, you do look at it and think to yourself that they could really go on to dominate that kind of, they could go on to dominate the European scene, because they've already dominated domestically. They no longer need to prove themselves on the local scene. And now that they've sort of broken that UEFA Champions League jinx, they can comfortably go into driving seat knowing that we've been here before and we've done it, we can do it again. So do let me know what your thoughts are on those views in regards to PSV, as well as everything within that line. So for me, it will be impressive to see, because they do have so many youngsters. They do have so many youngsters, players that are yet to reach even their prime. You know, players that are yet to hit their prime, and yet, I mean, Desiree Dole, that performance in the final was quite impressive, and yet he's only 19 years of age. Only 19 years of age. I mean, how do you sort of contest that? How do you contest that? You know, how do you contest that? Because it's it's sort of you do look back at that impressive Man United of 1999. Those are the memories you sort of get. And guess what? They went on to do big things, both domestically and in Europe. But anyways, that's the gist of the conversation for me. Since it's already deep in the night, we're coming to, it's about 7 minutes to midnight here in Kampala, Uganda. So I do not think it would be bad if I ask that we do wrap the conversation here. It's been a pleasure having you here, coming on here to give you that update. We will continue to follow, you know, the negotiations, and again, we're getting some breaking news in regards to that Florian Wirtz conversation that we just given you about, and this is according to Buyer 04 Extra. They said the final fee for Florian Wirtz will be in excess of 140 million euros and likely even above the 150 million euro mark. That's according to sources in Germany. Let's wait and see how things progress on that deal, but it remains to be seen where the discussions will be finalized at in as far as reaching an agreement for that player is concerned. We'll keep our eyes peeled. Then maybe as Arsenal continue with talks over Thomas Partey, a potential deal, they did come some reports that Barcelona had opened talks with Thomas Partey's camp over a free transfer this summer, with his future at the Emirates still up in the air. So you never know. I'm really sure there are clubs really are trying to talk to Thomas Partey's camp, because he's had quite a wonderful season. Actually, I think his best season in an Arsenal jersey, as far as consistency is concerned and being available at the top level. Somebody was trying to send us a message, but we're being told it's under review. I don't know whose message it was. I'd love to read it. I'd love to read their submission and hear what they are trying to tell us. But yeah, Arsenal fans, do brace yourselves, because the longer it takes Arsenal to sort of agree on a contract with Thomas Partey, then the more vulnerable it leaves them that they could lose him to another team, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Spanish La Liga, whether it's in the Italian Serie A. You always leave yourself vulnerable. Saudi Pro League clubs have really have considered him previously as a potential signing, although he chose to stay in the UK. But like I've said before, Arsenal would really want to avoid the situation of losing Jorginho and Thomas Partey in the same window. We all know how sometimes it becomes hard for new players to sort of adapt to the Premier League and sort of fit into that Arsenal team. So you do not want to find yourself in that kind of situation where you've already lost Jorginho to Flamengo, and then you lose Thomas Partey, and then your midfield is, let's say you get Martin Zubimendi over the line, and then you do have another new player there in midfield to try and fit in, and then that leaves you sort of settling for Declan Rice and Mikel Merino and Martin Odegaard, who as a trio have not yet gelled together. So it gives you that bit of a false start. And yet, if you have Thomas Partey, you sort of have that, usual suspect that fits into the team, and then you can ease in Martin Zubimendi as you go into the season. That's if you manage to get that deal over the line. Because, like I keep saying, never say never in as regards to transfers, in as regards to, those kinds of situations. You can have everything agreed in principle, and you think the deal is almost done, but until the player puts pen to paper and raises that chart at your club, they are always vulnerable to being stolen by another club. So let's wait and see where the conversation leads in as far as that Thomas Partey situation is concerned, and then we'll get to discuss more of that more of those reports in the morning. That's tomorrow, Monday, between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. That's when we will come to you live on a weekly basis. Do not press me, says hello. Hello, do not press me. Good to have you on the broadcast. How are you doing? Where are you joining us from? Amlen says, I'm on, but my network. Yeah, there's been a bit of a network glitches here and there, and our network hasn't been really been the best in the last couple of days. But we do soldier on. How is your day been? Do not press me. My day has been all right. How about yours? What team do you support? And I think I'm seeing you here for the first time. Please like the podcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel, see that you're new here. And also, more importantly, let us know what team do you support. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure really having you as part of our broadcast. Quite late on. We are just a couple of minutes away from midnight. Most people I know are asleep. Our colleagues, especially in India, by this time they're off to bed. It's already 1 a.m. for them. In fact, it's approaching 2 a.m. at that side. So if not already 2 a.m. In Turkey, it's approaching midnight. In the UK, it's about 9, approaching 10. So that kind of time. So you understand why I'm quite appreciative of the few of you that have managed to make it to today's broadcast and stayed with us for the longest period of time. I'm waiting for do not press me to respond to those questions if he is willing to before we call it a night here on today's broadcast. But it's been a pleasure, having you in regards to those updates regarding Bruno Fernandes, Florian Wirtz, Thomas Partey, yes, Ange Postecoglou with his situation at Tottenham. But like I said, depending on what sources you're reading, some do report that they have already decided to sack him, while others do indicate that the decision is yet to be made by the Tottenham chairman in Danny Levy, a very astute businessman really for him. Okay, we are waiting. Do not press me. Kindly let us know what club you support and where you're joining us from. I hope you become. He says, hope you become really become big one day. That's the goal. That's the goal. But thank you for the words of encouragement. And it does bring a lot to us when you say those things. Can you explain the VATS situation, please? I've already explained the Florian VATS situation, but I'll repeat it for you, seeing that you're a new member with us, and it will be really good to sort of reiterate the situation to you in regards to some of the latest reports that we are getting in as far as Florian Wirtz to potentially Liverpool is concerned. Now, the news we are getting in regards to the Florian Wirtz situation is that the two parties are still apart in terms of player valuation. Of course, 20 million euros apart. We did report on Friday that Liverpool had made a bid in the region of 130 million euros. That was their second bid after they had an initial bid turned down. And because the valuation of the player, according to Bayer Leverkusen sources, is 150 million euros, that leaves you the gap of 20 million euros. The guaranteed fees therein that was reported was close to 109 million pounds. Now, the latest reports do say that Bayer Leverkusen are considering including a Liverpool player in these negotiations. And among those players being considered is Harvey Elliott as well, or Jarell Konsa, one of those. But more likely, Harvey Elliott, because they would want to sort of fill that void when Florian Wirtz leaves, and Harvey Elliott is one of those players. But it also remains to be seen whether Harvey Elliott would be open to making such a move amidst a time when there is a lot of demand for him across some Premier League teams, including Liverpool as well as Nottingham Forest, that have been mentioned as potential suitors. So that there's still that gap in valuation, but the two clubs continue to negotiate to see if they can sort of find an agreement for a potential deal that sees the 22-year-old German international move to to Anfield. Of course, the player, like we reported on him before, already said Liverpool. Yes, to Liverpool, he did turn down by a minute, while Man City are pulled out of the West to try and sign him because they deemed the deal too expensive to pull off. Perhaps they got an even a bigger indication earlier on than Liverpool were able to get in regards to the pursuit of the same player. So that's what's happening really. The two parties are yet to come to an agreement on a transfer fee, and now there's a consideration out of a Bayer Leverkusen that they could consider, including a Liverpool player in those negotiations. But I think that will sort of take them slightly back in regards to those talks. Why? Because usually once you include a player in the negotiations, it becomes it begins. Liverpool simply say, okay, you're valuing Florian Wirtz at 150 million euros. We are valuing Harvey Elliott at 50 million euros, or we are valuing Joel Quash at 50 million euros or 45. So that means you are paying 100 or 105 or even 95 million euros for Florian Wirtz. If the deal works for the two parties, then on they go. If then Bayer Leverkusen also think that Liverpool are overvaluing the current player in under consideration for a potential swap deal plus cash for Florian Wirtz, then it sort of makes the debate a bit longer, or the discussion on negotiations a bit longer with that respect. So let's wait and see how that goes. Then there are some reports saying that Bayer Leverkusen have thrown their hat in the ring for Alejandro Garnacho, according to reports in the UK. But they do also indicate that Aston Villa could join the rest to try and sign him. The situation with Aston Villa, having missed out on UEFA Champions League football, sort of leaves them a bit in not a very good financial situation, because they may need to sell some of their players to stay on the good, really, really good side of the financial fair play rules in regards to the Premier League regulations there. I can say we have a new message from Just Now. Good work, bro. Thank you so much, Just Now. Kindly do me two favors. Please like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel and support what we do here. We are oftentimes live every single day, Monday to Friday, between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Usually around that time. You just have to turn on your notifications and you'll be notified once we go live. And then every single night we try to be here on live, usually between 10 and 11 p.m. to discuss the latest news in transfers and analysis regarding some major games when they are there. So I keep your eyes peeled on the Football Tribe YouTube channel, and I will do my best to try and keep you up to date with the latest when it comes to transfers, when it comes to all the speculations and rumors, as well as analysis around your favorite teams from the Premier League, from the Italian Serie A, Spanish La Liga, and elsewhere beyond. So that's the situation concerning Florian Wirtz. To answer your question, do not press me. I hope it does answer you, but we also spoke about, Milos Kakes. Liverpool are still in those negotiations with Bournemouth to see if they can acquire the left back, the Hungarian international. They are really, really interested in him. It's already midnight, and guys, unless you have any other questions, any other submissions, although Do Not Press Me has not told us what team they do support. Just now, also tell us where you're joining us from, what team you support, or what team interests you. Oftentimes, you can also put in your question, and we can answer it before we sign out of here. Yes, but I mean, a lot of news is making the rounds as regards to some of your favorite teams. But let's keep our eyes glued out there. We'll do our best to sort of keep you abreast on the latest. Of course, Liam Delap did have his medical today. I can see I have a question from Kickboxing. Kickboxing says Messi or Ronaldinho. If you're asking for my personal opinion, then for me it is Ronaldinho. Arguably the best player I've ever seen play football. The greatest, in my opinion. But if you're asking for the objective opinion of my position as an objective sports analyst, then I'll have to say Lionel Messi. That's objectively, as a sports analyst, I'd say Lionel Messi is the better player. But for me, as an individual, the best player that I've watched in my personal assessment, then I'll have to go with Ronaldinho Gaucho, the assist Moreira. I mean, the things he was able to do with that ball, I've not seen so many players do. And although he did say he did admire the likes of Okocha, I mean, there's so many things he could do with that ball that you simply sat down, admired, and enjoyed the game of football. If you watch Ronaldinho in a game, even if that game ended in a goalless draw, I think it would be hard for you to leave that game without saying, at least I enjoyed that moment, or I go away I go away after 90 minutes and do remember that kind of moment that he did give us. So, or whether it was a pass, whether it was a flicking of the ball, then you come back to say David Beckham or Carlos Alberto. Carlos Alberto. Carlos Alberto. I thought you were going to say Beckham and Roberto Carlos. So Carlos Alberto, I'm trying to Carlos Alberto Torres. Carlos Alberto Torres. That's if you're talking about Carlos Alberto Torres, the one of the 1940s, who played in the 1970 World Cup, then clearly I wouldn't be in position to give you an opinion on that. I never got the chance to watch the player, not even video reviews or clips of YouTube. But if you're talking about Roberto Carlos versus David Beckham, then overall, I think I would have to go with Roberto Carlos. But again, we are comparing oranges and apples in this case, because David Beckham was a number 7 or a traditional winger with very, very long pass, good cross, good free kick, and then Roberto Carlos, left back, very, very good left foot. So again, we are comparing apples and oranges in this case. So it doesn't sound like a perfect comparison for us to make. But thank you so much, Kickboxing, for chipping in there with your feedback, with that engagement. Please consider liking the broadcast, but as well as subscribing to the channel and help us go on this journey. Just now, I don't know if you're still with us, but it will be nice to hear from you, as well as do not press me now. But much appreciated, Kickboxing, for that engagement, for the comparisons that you did submit. George Weah or Kanu? I think I did not get the chance to watch George Weah really, but I would say George Weah over Nwankwo Kanu. Nwankwo Kanu, I mean, with all his height, pencil thin legs, he was a great watch. He was a great watch during his days at Arsenal, during his days at Portsmouth. For those of you that do remember him, I think when Portsmouth were still under the charges of what's his name? Harry Redknapp, that Portsmouth that had the likes of David James, really. So quite an impressive side. Quite an impressive side in Portsmouth. So Nwankwo Kanu was a really, really good player. Portsmouth, yeah, they went on to win the FA Cup in 2008. That team that had Nwankwo Kanu scoring in the, I think, 37 minutes of that game. For those of you that do remember, at Wembley. So, but I'll go for George Weah. I mean, we're talking about a player that won at the Ballon d'Or. Really, we cannot discount that. You remember. But for their FA Cup triumph, they did beat up against Cardiff City in the finals at Wembley. That final was played on the 17th of May 2008. That is the same year that Tottenham Hotspurs on the other side were winning at the Carabao Cup or the English Football League Cup, as they beat up against Chelsea by 2-1. Chelsea's goal was scored by Didier Drogba Ivestebile, while for Tottenham Hotspurs it was a penalty by Dimitar Berbatov that was the equalizer, and then Jonathan Woodgate scored the winning goal. or what turned out to be the winning goal. And Tottenham at the time were under the charges of an interim manager in Joan Ramos. Yes, Joan Ramos was the manager. And then at the end of the season, that is when they brought in Harry Redknapp for the 2008-2009 Premier League season. Kickboxing, you say, who is the better manager? Luis Enrique? Do you mean Luis Enrique or Emery? I think for me the clear winner there is Luis Enrique. I mean, yes, Unai Emery is a very, very good manager. He won 3 consecutive Europa League titles with Sevilla. I think that was between 2014, 15, and 16, around that time. Then he won another one with Villarreal in 2021 when they beat United 11-10 on penalties in the aftermath of a 1-1 draw. I think that was equally impressive. Although that has been impressive, for me, I would go with Luis Enrique all day. And again, for those of you that have always been part of some of these conversations, it takes me back to a question by one of our subscribers called David Melbourne Wampamba, who did one time ask me a question that if Arsenal were to get rid of Mikel Arteta, who do you think would be the perfect manager to replace him? And my number one in that slot was Luis Enrique, really. And then, of course, the others, we did speak about managers like Julian Nagelsmann, and then in the ideal world, we sort of gave mentions of Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, but for me, and then we mentioned Hansi Flick, but Luis Enrique really for me is the better manager. He's won his second treble this season, with PSG winning the UEFA Champions League, the French League 1, as well as the Coupe de France when they beat up against Wales by 3-0 in the final. Yesterday they beat PSG 5-0 in the final. They won the league by a mile, losing I think only 2 games in the campaign, losing to Strasbourg by 2-1, and then they lost to I think Nice by 3-1, and then also he did win the treble with Barcelona back in 2014-2015. That season they won the Copa del Rey, they won the Spanish La Liga, and they won the UEFA Champions League as they beat Juventus in the finals by 3-1. So for me, I would choose Luis Enrique as the better manager over Unai Emery. But Unai Emery, by his own measure, is equally a very, very good manager. Both Spanish managers. So Spain has indeed produced us a good couple of managers, really are very, very impressive. Who is the best team of all time? The best team of all time, in what respect, really? Kickboxing. Kindly clarify in terms of what is the best club in the world, best, football team, whether it's at international level in terms of the country or just club. Are you asking about currently what would be the ideal best team? Nitpicking from players across different clubs. I would want to really try and understand in what context within which you ask that question, if I'm to really answer it to the best of my ability. Any team, any year. I think if this in any leap and bound has to do with the UEFA team of the season, because I did read out earlier on the UEFA team of the season, which had Gianluigi Donnarumma, Marquinhos, Bastoni, Nuno Mendes, Achraf Hakimi, Declan Rice, Vitinha, Rafinha, Lamine Yamal, Dembele, and Desiree Doué. I think I do not think I would vote them as the best team. I think I would have to go back for the period between 2008 and 2012. For those of you that do remember, that's the time when Spain won the Euros in 2008, and then they won the FIFA World Cup in 2010 under the charges of Vicente Del Bosque, and then they won the Euros of 2012. So I think I'll have to go back to that team in between. Not to say that Barcelona as a whole team, but to pick throughout that team. Because remember, Barcelona in 2008, 2009, they won the treble under Pep Guardiola. I think it was his first full season at Barcelona. They won the treble, including beating Man United by 2-0 in the finals. And then 2010, You had Inter Milan win the Champions League as they won the treble. That team that had Wesley Schneider, Maicon, Lucio, Zanetti, they beat Bayern Munich, or Luis van Gaal's Bayern Munich in the final. And then 2011, Barcelona came back and won the UEFA Champions League. And for Inter Milan to win the UEFA Champions League, they knocked out Barcelona, I think 3-2 on aggregate in the semi-finals, because Inter Milan beat them 3-1 at the Giuseppe Meazza Stadium, but also lost to them by 1-0 at Camp Nou. So I think I'll go back to that time and sort of select amongst some of those gigantic clubs, but predominantly, of course, Barcelona. You look at players like Xavi, Iniesta, you add in Schneider in there, you bring in Lionel Messi at the time. I mean, those were quite impressive players. You look at a player like Charles Puyol in his leadership. Of course, that is even at the expense of dropping Sergio Busquets in that very team. You look back at Sergio Ramos, the kind of World Cup he had in 2010, and then you could look at Thomas Muller at the time, quite a hot cake. So I think I'll go back to that sort of era and choose my best team of any year. So that is the range of years that I'll go back to. But also, I think if I were to extend it further back, I'll go back to the time of 2002 when Brazil were winning the FIFA World Cup. I mean, that was a star-laden team. Ronaldo, Nazario Darima, Rivaldo, Cafu, Ronaldinho Gaucho, His Excellency Kaka, Vida. I mean, we're talking about a very impressive team. German, the other side had Miroslav Klose, they had Oliver Kahn in goal. So, okay, you burst in Schweinsteiger, you go back to that sort of, okay, no, not Schweinsteiger, sorry, but Ivica Olic, you go back to that range of, players, and look to that era. And look to that era and say those were quite impressive players. So for me, I think those are the periods in football that I'll, in quick memory, that I'd run back to and try and pick a team at the time in as far as things go. So, anyways, so then you come back to say Gary Neville or Phil Plum. Phil Plum any day. Give me Phil Plum. Phil Plum really. For me was one of the best right backs there was. And even when Pep Guardiola came, you could show how easily we converted him into a midfielder. I do not think Gary Neville would have given that to you even during his prime at Man United. So for me, it's Phil Plum any day, anytime. That for me is where I could go back to. But yeah, but that German team was quite loaded. It had the likes of Michel Ballack. I mean, really impressive team. So that's 2002 that we are talking about. Oliver Bierhoff, so really. Anyways, but thank you so much, Kickboxing. I hope you've subscribed to the channel. But thank you for your input. Thank you for your player comparisons, the team, the questions in regards to the team, and everything, the manager comparisons that you sort of expanded our debate beyond what its scope had earlier on been. But we always do appreciate that kind of feedback. It helps us expand our engagement and football knowledge as we learn from each other. Sometimes people put to me questions that I need to sort of go back and read a few notes here and there and try and think about some of the players they're asking about and sort of look at their different technical abilities and tactical abilities for me to be able to give you the sort of opinions that I'm able to formulate around those players, and sometimes the managers as well and teams as a whole. But it's I always really do appreciate these kinds of engagement. You help expand our debates beyond our scope, but they also sort of help to feed us back, to feed our memory or take us trips down the memory lane, and we look at some of the players that are sort of, in hindsight, have been arguably some of the best players over certain different eras in comparison to some of the players we have today and the sort of direction football has taken. And that's for me, getting here to talk about people like Ronaldinho sort of takes you back to a different sort of era where football managers left players to express themselves on the pitch with the game and that kind of thing. And yet today it's all about the tactics, make that pass, make the decision to make the pass here and there. Players are sort of more and more being restricted to exhibit their natural brilliancy when it comes to especially dribbles, being intricate in play, because the game has sort of become more tactical that you need to play that pass. It puts us in this kind of position. You need to pull that player out of that sort of comfort zone and that kind of thing. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I do want to send my shout outs to you, Kickboxing. I do want to say to send my shout outs to Just Now, Do Not Press Me, and all the others that have been a part of today's broadcast. Thank you so much. Hi everyone. We also had Okoyo, that is Okoyo Amlen. We had Do Not Press Me, and Safa Ali, and all the others. Mr. Leo, they were with us in the earlier broadcast. Thank you so much for always sparing the time to be with us. Your love and support does not go unnoticed. Allow me to wish you guys a wonderful rest of the night. See you tomorrow. Let's engage in tomorrow's podcast. Stay blessed and bye-bye.